Hi, James. It's good to see you again. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. So in our last session, we were talking a little bit about some of the panic kind of episodes that you've been experiencing a few times now over the last few months. And so I had given you the thought change record as homework in our last one for you to see, if you experience another one of those kind of events, to write down a little bit about the situation, what were some of the thoughts going through your head, and what were you feeling. And so I wanted to see if you had a chance to work on that at all, or if you had brought that back in to share a little bit about what that was like.
I kind of played with it a little bit. I just wanted to understand a little bit better. Last time I saw you, I was just really upset about the fact that I'm having to see a therapist. So I didn't really absorb everything, no fault of your own.
Hmm.
So the way I kind of took the assignment is when I start to feel like shortness of breath and like my arms are starting to tingle, you want me to write down what I'm thinking or how I'm feeling or what has made me feel that way?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you didn't have a specific one from this week that you wrote down some of the things about, we can kind of walk through that in this session here and go through it together so that you'll have a better idea of what kind of notes you'll want to take going forward if it happens again. Does that
Okay.
sound okay?
Yes.
All right. So, what was one of the times that you did kind of experience one of those panic episodes? Can you tell me a little bit about what was going on at the time, and I'll write down a few notes
The,
about that situation.
the worst episode I had was when um it was that weekend day when I was just trying to get a bunch of chores done, homework done, and entertain my five kids at the same time as, trying to get them to help me with chores. Um, I just, I guess I felt like everything was just like caving in on me, like as if I was standing in front of a big wall of boxes and I was just trying to pull one box out at a time and they all just start falling on
Okay.
me.
Yeah, that sounds very overwhelming. Um, Before we get too far into some of the feelings, I just want to make sure we've got everything. Did you have any help in that moment? Was your spouse there, or was it just you there with your kids working on all the chores and
My
things?
my spouse was not here. He
Okay.
was working.
Okay. All right. Anything else about the actual situation itself that you think makes sense to make note of at the time?
I guess I maybe sometimes like in that situation, I didn't know if like I was being too tough on the kids, if I was just like I'm constantly worried, like am I stealing their childhood by giving them a bunch of
Mm,
chores or like trying to do stuff around the house all the time? Like, am I spending enough quality time with them? Am I too worried about the chores?
mm-hmm.
Um, so but then at the same time, it's like I think of my childhood and I did chores, and
Mm-hmm.
I also have good memories. So I don't know. I don't know if that's rational or
Yeah, no, that's fair. Um, so so yeah, getting a little more into some of those thoughts that were going through your head. It sounds like you were worried about your kids and if you were, being too hard on them or whether they had to do too many chores. What were some of the other thoughts that you remember were kind of going through your head in that moment as you were starting to feel that panic setting in?
kind of just felt like my two older kids should know better. Like I shouldn't have to constantly remind them that I've asked them to do this chore, or I shouldn't have to constantly redirect them that I'm having them do a chore.
Hmm.
And it's just they just get off track so easily. And I just like because they're not wanting to just follow some simple directions, I'm looking like or I'm coming off as this mean dad, which I don't like to be, but at the same time, when you're asked to do something by your parent and it's within reason, of course,
Hmm.
do it.
Yeah. So I heard you say that you feel like they're going to think that you're a mean dad with the things that you're saying. Any other thoughts about yourself specifically that kind of came up in that moment or came across your mind?
I just maybe Before having kids, I feel like every parent has like this picture in their head of like what it'll be like. And that picture is nowhere near the reality that I'm living, because I just imagine me being like this super graceful, fun loving, calm dad. And I'm in those moments where I'm just trying to get everything under the sun in order. I feel like I'm nothing of the above. It's just constant like bickering or having to raise my voice or time out or threatening for a spanking or um and I know they're children, and I know that children require redirection and guidance, but with my two older ones, it's like, how much redirection and guidance do you need before you just have to like give them that consequence for not
Yeah.
following directions? And I feel like when I get to that point, I am the bad person, because they're children. And the chores that I give them are like, make your bed, vacuum your room, wipe down your bathroom really quick, take the dogs out, feed the dog.
Yeah.
It's, I'm not
They're fair
asking them to
things.
like
Yeah. Yep.
and stuff.
So if you had to, in those moments, rate on a scale of 0% to 100%, how much you're feeling like you're a mean dad or you're not living up to the standard of the parent you wanted to be, um, with 0 being I'm 100%, or well, 0 being I'm the best dad that I could be. I'm exactly in line with where I think I should be, and 100% being I am as far as I can be from being the kind of parent I want to be. Where would you kind of put the way you felt right in that moment?
In those moments, those exact moments, I feel 0%. I'm like the greatest dad ever, because I feel like when they grow up and they have to go to college, or if they choose to just go straight into the workforce, or whatever they choose to do with their life, they've got to carry some basic life skills with them. And part of that is like learning how to mold and follow directions, and not just be a leader, but also understand that you're going to be following a leader sometimes. And in those moments when they're not doing it, I'm like, okay, I've got to like address this. I have to stay on it. It's the come down. It's like after those moments, it's like, damn, I was a prick, or
Okay.
their kids. Maybe I should not worry about their adulthood so much. But then, like you see in society where parents don't care about their children's future, and those are the adults that usually struggle to cope with
Yeah.
everyday life.
Yeah. All right. So you said 0% right in that moment. And then afterwards, would you say that's changed at all or still?
0% in that moment, afterwards 100% shittiest dad on the planet.
Okay. Um, and then can you name a few of those emotions that then go along with that? So we've talked about a few of the thoughts that went through your head. If you had to name just a couple specific emotions that you feel in that moment or right after.
So the last time that this happened is when we had to call the ambulance so I could
Mm-hmm.
go. I thought I was having a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Normally it's just I can't sleep. I'm really restless, emotional. Sometimes I like get sweaty, or there's been other times where my heart's just been racing, or I just feel sick to my stomach. But it's not usually as intense as it was this last time.
Okay. Um, so, and then the kind of behavior that follows that, it sounds like you were still telling your kids to do the chores and that kind of thing in that moment. Any other specific responses in terms of what you do? Does it affect the way you have handled that since then? Are you still telling your kids to do chores? Have you backed off at all on that?
One thing that I truly love about myself is I honestly try to wake up every day and be a better person. So like, of course, I try to change my approach,
Mm-hmm.
instead of like just having to get onto them all the time. Maybe like try and explain why this needs to be done, or like what the result is going to look like before they start. Um, but I mean, it's just, especially with the two older ones, it always circles back to they're not listening. It doesn't matter what approach I take. Um,
Okay.
and it's not like they're really good kids. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
good grades, they love each other, they love me, I love them. It's just in those moments where they're not wanting to do their chores.
Yeah. All right. So I want to look a little bit then at some of those thoughts that have gone through your head, and see if we can think through any things that can help kind of combat those thoughts when they come to your head. And one of them you just said a second ago, you love them, they love you. So it sounds like the idea of you being this bad dad, or not living up to the standard you want to meet, despite feeling like that in those moments. One thing that you can tell yourself is, I do love them. They love me. It's not like this terrible relationship has come from experiencing moments like those. So that would be one set of kind of evidence that I would say, shows that that's not 100% true. As you had said, you sometimes feel that there's still a lot of love there. Another one you mentioned earlier was that, you did chores as a kid, right?
Mhm.
And did that ever make you feel like your parents were these terrible parents for having you do chores?
I mean, as a kid, but now that I'm an adult and I know how to keep a clean house and,
Mm-hmm.
function as an adult, absolutely not.
Okay. Any other evidence that you can think of that would point to that, having your kids help out with chores is not necessarily making you a bad dad, or not living up to the standard that you think you'd want to?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. And can you think of any specific evidence saying that making your kids do chores is making you a bad dad, or is making you not live up to the standard that?
Just my own thoughts, like,
Okay.
that one weekend, the really bad one, it was like the next day we were supposed to go to Six Flags. So like I constantly have this thought, like, Six Flags was really fun, but are they gonna remember the day before where I was having to holler at them and time out and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, you know? So like, is a bad memory gonna come along with that good memory?
Gotcha. So yeah, and there is always going to be balance within a family. We all will have good days and bad days, but yeah, we want to make sure that those bad days aren't what's living in your mind and constantly tugging at you even in those good moments. Um, so yeah, if we look at your belief, of the evidence that we did say that, you love your children and they love you, and that you did chores as a kid, and that doesn't make you think that your parents were bad. How much do you believe those statements?
I believe them.
Yeah, on a scale of 0% to 100%, how much do you feel that those statements are true?
100%.
Okay. So then when we are back in those moments, do we think that telling yourself those things would affect, the level of emotion you might feel in those moments?
Maybe.
Okay. And another thing we can do is we can write some of those kind of statements down on a card and keep them somewhere in your house where you sometimes are when you're working on those chores, so that you can see those and remind yourself, my kids love me. They don't see me as a bad dad the way that I might see myself at time to time. I did chores as a kid and I don't, hate my parents because of it, that kind of thing, to help to change the way your body might react, in those moments. Does that sound like something we might be able to do?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks so much for being so open with me today. And I think we're off to a good start to working on changing some of those thoughts in those moments.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yep. Bye.